Welcome to the Bold Goal Crusher podcast. For anyone looking to stop letting life get in the way and start crushing bold goals. I'm your host, Sara Mayer, and I'm thrilled to navigate this journey with you because it's time to start boldly achieving without working double time. So let's dive in. Hello, Bold Goal Crushers. I'm super excited about this episode, and I think you're going to love my guest, Kate. She's an author and career and mindset coach for artists and creatives. She lives on the beautiful island of Bermuda, which we will talk about how she ended up there, where she gets to spend her days working with clients, writing blogs and books, gardening, and running the Bermuda Philharmonic. And she believes that everyone has the right to live exactly the kind of life they always dreamed of living. She's a former professional cellist. She attended the New England Conservatory of Music and was a New World Symphony Fellow. She went on to have a thriving freelance career, worked with incredible students, and toured as a solo and chamber musician before pivoting to the online space in 2020. And she loves discussing ways to navigate the intersection of performance achievement and leadership skills in order to identify and reach one's potential in life and career. Kate, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Sara. I'm really psyched to be here.
Yeah, I just love your story and journey. And I will share that Kate is also from Chicago. So we spent our pre-talk talking all about the streets of Chicago and how much we love this city. All right, we need to address the elephant in the room, though. How did you end up in Bermuda?
Oh, so there was a boy. No, it's true. I used to play a lot in the Key West Symphony. I would be flown down there from Boston about 5 or 6 times a year. And at one point I realized I really love this whole island living thing. And then later when I was living in Boston, I went to basically a conference and I met this guy and he lived in Bermuda. And so I said, great, let's get married.
And the rest is history.
The rest is 5 years later. But yeah, I absolutely love it. There's a bit more to the story, which we can get into. At the time, I was a professional cellist. I was teaching. I was working 7 days a week from 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. every day. And I loved all the work I did. Individually, I loved everything. I was working with my friends. I was making great money. I was having this spectacular career. And my boyfriend, then fiance at the time, was living on this island in Bermuda. And I realized that with the kind of work I wanted to be doing, I didn't need to be in Boston. I just needed an airport. And knowing how I felt about island living and the kind of community you have, like we go to the grocery store, we know 20 people in that place. And it's just wonderful. And yeah, it was a very big pivot. It was a big leap, but I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did it.
What's really interesting is that you mentioned that you had pretty much everything. We grow up in society, and as kids, we're like, you need to get the house, the boyfriend, the fiance, get married, get the house, get the picket fence, get the kids. And then yet what I hear from a lot of people and also felt myself was, okay, now I'm here, but this isn't really satisfying, or this isn't what I want.
No, exactly. And I've never done anything in order, right? I bought the condo when I was 25 and I had the career, and then I got married at 40, and then I sold the condo and am paying rent. Look at it any which way, we are far better off financially now than we were before. But at the time, it seemed like a really big risk. And yeah, sometimes you just have to go for it.
Yeah. So you definitely had to muster up some courage. How did you go about like really deciding, okay, this is what I need to do and I'm going to leave Boston behind?
One of my jobs that I had, one of my non-performing jobs, was that I was the director of strings and orchestra at this incredible private school outside of Boston. It was an easy commute from my house. It was the cushiest teaching job possibly in the States. It's just incredible headmaster, incredible faculty, incredible students, incredible community. And I had been there for a while, and they had this amazing tradition that when somebody retired from teaching there, they would put together a really bespoke thank you evening, right? To really honor that teacher's contribution to the school. And one morning, one of my colleagues was retiring, and one of those things was happening. And so we were just talking about the whole concept. And one of my colleagues said, "Oh, Kate, I can't wait until your retirement party is going to be amazing. We'll bring back all of your former students to come back and play a big concert." What she was describing was wonderful. It was so beautiful. And any high school strings director would be honored to have something like that thrown for their retirement. And I just, like, my heart sank into the pit of my stomach. And I was like, this is not my career. This is not what I want to retire from. This is
Mhm.
not who I am. As much as I love this job and it's a great circumstance and everything is set, and it was part-time. I wasn't beholden to them. I could still perform and travel and do all of the things I was doing. It's like, this isn't right. This isn't me. And so that was probably the catalyst for my deciding that a change had to be made. It was terrifying. That's
Ah,
a common theme in my life of the several pivots that I've made, because I went from being a cellist. First of all, even before then, I was accepted into the New World Symphony program, which is a huge honor,
mhm.
before I even moved back to Boston. And that is an orchestral training ground. They train you to get jobs in the top orchestras in the US.
Wow.
And in the beginning of my third year, I sat there and realized I did not want to be an orchestral player. I loved solo and chamber music, and I was like, I need to go.
Mhm.
And so I moved back to Boston and went out on my own. And the director was like, "Are you sure?" And I made it work, and it was great. And then I pivoted from that role in Boston, where I was performing and teaching and traveling and had this, what anybody would say, the ideal circumstance. I realized I still wasn't doing mostly solo and chamber music and touring around, and I wasn't contributing in the way that I felt called to contribute. I think we all have that
Yeah.
feeling somewhere, right? Like, you're doing your work and you're probably really good at it, but you just have that feeling of, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Somebody told me this, it was a coach. They said, "Just because you're really good at it and can do it, doesn't mean it's your true desire or
Mhm.
what you truly should be doing." And I that really hit home for me because there were things that I was really good at work and I was known for, yet every time somebody called me, I was like, "Seriously?
Mhm.
Again?"
Mhm. Yeah, what's interesting is I found with myself, and I
Yeah.
see with my clients, that very often what you are good at, as far as the job that you have that is not your calling, are the things that make you really good at your calling.
Mhm.
Right? Like, when I was performing and doing solo concerts and stuff, and I was traveling around, I would get up and I would talk to the audience. I loved telling stories about the music, about the composers. And honestly, it's starting to become a thing now. But like, when I grew up, we were told, like, you walk out on stage very elegantly, you bow, you sit down, you perform, you let the music speak for itself. And then you finish and you bow very elegantly and you leave. You don't talk to the audience.
No.
There's supposed to be this wall between the performer and the audience. So I was breaking all of those rules, and I was out there telling stories and engaging with the audience, and they loved it. And I became known for that, right? So even though being a performing cellist ended up not quite being my calling at the end of the day, right? My cello is sitting right there. I haven't opened it a case since October. It's my storytelling that is my calling.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
my writing skills, my communicating with other people, my coaching other clients. And so what I was really good at, one aspect, it didn't really occur to me. I was like, "Oh, I just like doing that." What I was known for as a cellist was the thing
Mhm.
that I'm known for now. I have a client now who was in the tech industry, and his calling was to be an artist. So he's making a huge pivot,
Yeah,
like,
that is.
complete pivot. And we were talking about his role, and it came up that his spreadsheets were beautiful. He was like, And I said, he showed me some of the spreadsheets he made for his company. They're like works of art.
Yeah.
And he was known for having really creative ways of showing information that communicated a story to people, a really helpful one. And it was his artistic brain that was trying to come out no matter what.
Wow. That's a great point that there are these, I'll use the word threads. There are threads in what you're currently doing that really are, maybe they're invisible strings, to quote Taylor Swift, that really pull you along to the next thing. I do have to ask a question before we jump in. I want to talk about mindset and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But how did you get your cello to Bermuda? Is that a carry-on item? Did you check that?
No, it's the number one question we get, cellists traveling with cellos. We have to buy a seat for it,
Oh, wow.
a full fare, buy a seat
Do you
for it.
seatbelt it in?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they bring you a little seatbelt extender that they use for, like,
Huh.
pregnant ladies. Yeah.
I've always thought
Um
about that. I'm gonna digress really quick, but it's really funny. So my friend was the director of a chorale, like the Phoenix Chorale. Great person, the executive director. And I used to joke because they would have us write down at the Christmas show, pick your favorite song and we might play it. And they did an auction for, uh, I guess, a guest conductor. And I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, that can't be that hard. I wanna win this." And then I actually worked at the Fiesta Bowl, which is a big game in Arizona for college teams, and I watched the conductor for the Michigan band. She's standing on a ladder, looking at the game and conducting over here. Oh, that's not very easy. So I'm glad I didn't get picked to be the conductor for a day.
I will say that being a conductor does not normally include standing on a ladder in the middle of a football game. So,
I was so
kudos to
impressed.
that conductor. She's amazing. Yeah, no, I'm impressed too. I don't stand on a ladder when I conduct, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, we buy a seat for it. It's a whole
Wow.
thing.
So
Yeah.
that ended my dream about being a guest conductor.
I don't know. What if it's your calling, Sarah? We should talk.
I'm not sure. Anyway, so now you made this big pivot and now
Mm.
you spend most of your days writing, working with clients, writing blogs, and doing all the things that you love. And so how did you really tap into that? Like how did you know, okay, I'm on the right track?
Mm. Slowly but surely. I knew I had inklings, right? And when I moved here and was traveling and had a little bit more time on my hands because I wasn't working 24/7. I was listening to podcasts. I was getting information. I was learning the lay of the land. I was learning a little bit about like marketing and getting the lingo down. And then I started my first coaching program in January of 2020. I enrolled in the fall of 2019, started January 2020. It was all musicians. We all had this goal, and mine was going to be like a helping high schoolers practice better,
Yeah.
whatever, and go around to schools and lecture and do this thing. And then the pandemic hit, and I pivoted and I created what essentially in hindsight was the very first online music festival.
Wow.
And it was a 7-week festival. I'll spare you all the details of the
Yeah.
history of summer festivals for advanced students, but they're super important. And I couldn't handle the idea that this whole class of students wouldn't have one. So I created, it was a big success, pivoted into they wanted to work with me all year long. So I pivoted that into the Bridge online cello studio. And then colleagues started asking me if I could help them with theirs. So I was working one-on-one. They're like, we don't have any work. For artists, for musicians in particular, concerts were canceled.
Mhm.
And for a lot of musicians, they're coupled up with other musicians. So both incomes were gone. So they were really looking for ways to supplement that income. And now's the time if they've ever been curious about this. So yeah, like my coaching career was born of that. I found that I was good at it. And more importantly, realized that it lit me up in a way that the most incredible performance never did.
Wow.
When you're on stage and everything's going well and you've prepared and you're playing your heart out and everything's just happening, you're in the zone, that's an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
Addictive almost. And this feeling was even better.
Wow. You found your
And
spot.
I found my spot, and I could have my blog, Tales from the Lane, which is now a podcast. And I found that just people were responding to these things that I had thought about and figured out along the road. You brought up mindset.
Mhm.
And I think that is the number one thing that people struggle with.
Yeah.
We have imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm not good enough to do that, or it's too late. I'm too old. I can't leave my job and my career. I can't go do something else. I'm too old. I'm too well established. I don't have enough time to reestablish myself in something else. Or I'm too young. Like, I don't have any experience. Who's going to take me seriously? Yeah, those imposter syndrome, negative thoughts, and resistance when you find yourself doing all of the ironing in the entire house. Like, when you find yourself ironing somebody's underwear, that is resistance, right? Like, you're just trying to avoid
I always
doing.
talk about my client who she would send on what she did for the week because she was struggling with getting it done. And every week for a month, she had on there like clean oven. It was like 2 hours every week.
Mhm.
And I was like, first of all, aren't those self-cleaning? And two, what are you don't even cook. Like, what could be in your oven that needs to be clean? And she was avoiding really making this call to a difficult person in her life. She was just avoiding that. So she was finding stuff to do,
Yeah, we
cleaning her
call it
oven.
procrastinating, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of
Procrastinating.
my
I love that
favorites.
terms. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, I cannot possibly do any work until I clean my desk. It's
Yeah.
fine. And my
I
office and the
I
house
I
and the neighbor's
also
house.
yeah. I also feel like sometimes there's a fear of being a beginner again. Like,
Yes.
you were very accomplished in your music career, and now you're starting something new, and it's like going back to the beginning.
Mhm. Mhm. Terrifying.
Yep.
The very first thing I did was when everything got locked down, music schools were locked down, and my colleagues, all of us, had to transition to teaching online like overnight. Like, we were told on Friday that on Monday we had to be teaching our students online. Now, because I had been traveling, I had students in Boston and I had students in Bermuda. So when I was traveling, I would see them on Zoom. They were totally used to it, and I was totally used to it. It was just how I had been living my life for years. And my colleagues, by the way, were like, online, Zoom, what's Zoom? Like, why? It can't be the same as an in-person lesson, right?
Yeah.
So the very first thing I did is I just did a Facebook Live workshop that I announced that I was going to go through my Zoom setup and how I teach lessons online. Hundreds of my colleagues showed up.
Wow.
I was so terrified to post that event. I thought I was going to throw up. Because I was like, I've never done this before. Yeah,
Yeah.
teach lessons on Zoom I had done, but I have never presented myself as a teacher to my colleagues.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, all of the imposter syndrome, I don't think I got to my desk until a second before I was supposed to start, right? Like, I just was avoiding
Yeah.
it to the last second. These things never go away. They
Yeah.
really never go away, but you learn how to handle them. You learn to acknowledge them. You learn that all they are is fear.
Mhm. Yep.
It's just fear.
Yeah.
And the fear is there to protect you, but not from anything real.
Yeah. Exactly. I One thing that you brought up is that you knew if somebody's listening right now and they're like, I'm in this role or I'm doing this, but I'm not sure if I know, like,
Mm.
that I need to move a different direction. What advice would you give them?
It's so funny. My podcast episode that's coming out next Monday is called How to Use Your Funk to Get Through to Your Next Breakthrough. Can't remember the exact
Ooh,
title.
yeah.
But it is when you have that feeling of things aren't quite right. I'm not quite happy, but I don't know why. I don't know what would make me happy. And there are various things like journaling. My favorite thing is to ask yourself the question, what's next for me?
Mm.
What should my next step be? And then go do something repetitive. Go for a walk without listening to a podcast or anything. Like, just go for a walk, knit, garden, anything that is a repetitive thing. So your body is active, your brain is engaged without being like busy or focused. And sometimes that answer will come to you. Maybe not in that exact second, but it will
Yeah.
come to you. Your brain's working on answering that question. Journaling, of course. If you have the means to work with a coach, coaches are trained to ask the right questions. A lot of people think a coach just gives you advice. No,
Yeah.
what do we know? It's your life. but we are trained to ask you the right questions so that you can find your own right answers. Because
Ooh.
sometimes you can get clarity from that. And one of my favorite little tricks is what I call the jealousy scroll.
Hmm.
Since we're all doom scrolling on Instagram anyway, you
TikTok,
take your phone,
whatever
yeah,
it is.
might as well just make it productive, right? So
Yeah.
next time you're on social media and you're scrolling, just take note of which things give you a little twinge of jealousy.
Hmm. That's interesting. Then you're scrolling with a purpose too.
You're scrolling with a purpose. It's
Yeah.
great for procrastination.
And then
No, it's a purpose.
once somebody identifies those things, then what would be the next step?
Ask yourself what that information is telling you.
Mhm.
If you are jealous of people who are often in New Zealand hiking, or they're in Paris at the fashion shows, or whatever it is you're seeing people do, what is it about that is making you jealous? Is it that they have time to travel? Or is it that you've always wanted to have more time to be outdoors and hike? Is it that your inner fashion designer is itching to get out and do stuff? What is it about that photo that
Yeah.
stopped you in your tracks that's giving you a little bit of information?
Yeah. My friend does this on, she's a realtor. So she always talks about this on Zillow. Zillow has this weird thing about you'll be looking at houses in the $200,000 price range. You might like this, it's $50 million.
Uh-huh.
And she talks about that in Zillow, like, what are the things that stop you? Is it somebody's kitchen because it looks a certain way? So I think it's
Mhm.
really interesting that you talk about that on social too, because she encourages people to take those screenshots and then it really determines what they're really looking for. Because people say, oh, I want a pretty house. But what does that mean?
Yeah. I remember even Pinterest is a good way.
Yeah.
When I was planning my wedding, I was 40. Like nobody around in my life was getting married anymore. So I had
Yeah.
no examples set for me. And I just would go on Pinterest and be like, I like those flowers and those flowers are pretty.
Yeah.
And those. And finally I realized, oh no, all of those random flowers that I picked had a similar color scheme.
Yeah.
They all had these three flowers in them. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So that's a little clarity. Now I know what I'm looking for. And so within that sort of amorphous mess, the cloudy mess, if you just grab, what do you know? I don't know what flowers I want, but I know I think those are pretty.
Yeah.
Just grab, it's a question I ask my clients all the time when they're like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. I'm like, what do you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that I want to be home when my kid gets home from school.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means I want to work remotely. I don't know if that means I want to quit entirely and work from home. I don't know if that means I don't want to have a regular 9 to 5 job. All I know is that I want to be home when my kid gets home from school. So just going with one thing at a time, you gradually get the clarity that you need.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. The universe wants you to get this information. It's your calling for a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we don't all have the calling to go cure cancer. And we don't all have the calling to solve the Middle East crisis. Like we all want these things to happen.
Yeah.
We're all
But
grateful when those things happen, but it's not our own personal calling. So everybody has a different calling, and what makes the world progress and hopefully become a better place.
yeah. One of the things that I shared in your bio is that you love discussing ways to navigate the intersection of performance achievement and leadership skills
Mm.
in order to identify and reach one's own potential in life. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of my clients that I work with are creatives of some kind. They're dancers or they're musicians or artists, visual artists. They're all performers in some way. And the fact that they are willing to get out there and perform, and it just lends itself beautifully to leadership qualities and leadership roles. And that can be a leadership role specifically within their industry, right? I have a cellist who's a brilliant cellist, and she has created a wonderful festival. She is the artistic director of this cello festival. So she stepped up in leadership in a direct line. And I have other people who have stepped up in leadership in local politics.
Mhm.
or I have a colleague who's a dancer who's going to be speaking at the UN. Like, it's mind boggling what people are capable of accomplishing if they just take what's already inside them and transfer them to what they want to be doing.
Yeah. And I love that you share that it doesn't they can still do what they love, but
Mhm.
add something else. It doesn't need to be a huge pivot or a huge, okay, I'm completely leaving this behind. It can be complementary to what you're already doing.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it can be completely different. I have seen all kinds of situations. I've seen
Yeah.
people say, I'm doing this. I like the industry, but I want to be in a different role in this industry. And sometimes I'm ready to step up in
Yeah.
this role. I'm ready to be my boss's boss
Yeah.
in this industry. And other people are like, I'm in sales and I'd rather be in
Yeah.
development, whatever
Yeah.
it is. And there are people who are like, I'm in this industry. I've been in this industry my entire life and I'm ready to do something totally different. And you can migrate yourself slowly through that or just burn the ships.
Yeah.
That's a personal choice. That's up to you and your circumstances, right?
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
really interesting, when I used to lead large teams, we often had difficult conversations, and sometimes they were just really cool. But you brought up the power of questions. And so many times people will ask me, like, how do I hold my leaders accountable or my employees accountable? And I used to, when I managed a ton of people, I used to just say, how do you think you're doing? And 90%, there was only one person who was completely off. Everybody else was like, "I don't think this is working," or "I'm really struggling with this," and I didn't have to say anything because they already knew. But the other thing I asked, which you mentioned questions were like guiding them, I would always ask, "What do you want to do? This is your job, but what do you want to do?" And what was really fascinating is I'd have the finance guys who'd say, "I really wanna be in sales," or
Mhm.
whatever, and then I would ask, "How did you end up in finance?" And often it was that my dad was an accountant, and so I was told my whole life I needed to be accountant, and here I'm in finance, but really my passion is sales. So how
Mhm.
can I help you get closer to that? And I always found those conversations fascinating because what I thought was, he's a finance guy, he loves finance. No, not so much.
No, my favorite is when you ask that question and the people are like, I really liked my math teacher and I did really well in high school. So I
Yeah,
majored in math in college. And there are so many people who are in industries simply because they really liked their teacher. Now, I'm married to
yeah,
a high school teacher, so I like nothing but absolute respect for people
yeah,
that are passionate and work with these kids. But that's not a reason to choose your profession and your
yeah,
career. So that said, it is an okay reason to choose your profession. What other
yeah,
information do you have? If you don't know what you
yeah,
want to do, just pick whatever comes to you. But isn't that a great reason for us as adults when we do have more information, when we do feel that calling of, you know what? I'm in finance, but I'd rather be in sales or I'd rather be doing this. That's okay that
yeah,
you're allowed to make that change,
yeah,
like a decision. I was a cellist because when I was 4.5 years old, my mom brought me to our family friend's house. Their older son played the cello, their younger daughter played the violin and piano, and they played their instruments for me. And my mom said, okay, which one do you want to play? And
yeah.
I had a huge crush on the older brother, Blake.
Yeah.
And so I
There
had an
you
entire
are.
career as a cellist. Now, I loved my career as a cellist. Like, I do not blame
Yeah.
8-year-old Blake, but right, like we make decisions for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
All sorts of
Yeah.
reasons,
And I
so
think so young we're at, what do you wanna be when you grow up? How does anybody know at 4 years old? At 5? I think my brother in 1st grade, he had to do a project of what he wanted to be, and he wanted to be a garbage man in the
yeah,
city of Chicago. And of
cool.
course, people were like, "What? You'll never make any money." He just really wanted to jump on and off the garbage truck. That
Yeah,
was really the decision for being a garbage man. It had nothing
I
to
mean,
do with garbage or anything like that. He just wanted to be the guy who jumped on and off the truck.
it seems pretty cool to me.
Yeah.
It seems pretty cool to me. My nephew is going off to college, he'll be a freshman next year, and he was saying, he's, "Auntie Kate," "I'm undecided." He said, "It's a little weird because everybody I know seems to know what they wanna major in."
Mm.
And I was like, "I think it's great that you're undecided. I think that is fantastic."
Yeah.
What a gift to go to
Yeah.
college and all of these classes and just learn and feel like, what are you being called towards? What's pulling you at
Yeah.
this age of like when you do have information and you can make these decisions? Like I said, the clarity will find you if you let it. If you open yourself up to it and ask yourself, what do I know? What's next? What is
Yeah.
it that I want to do?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
And it's
Um,
never too late.
it's never too late. And of course,
Yeah.
then you have to get through that imposter syndrome and the resistance
Yeah.
and find the courage to do it. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
always worth it.
I could talk to you all day, but I know we have a little time limit. So if our listeners are really resonating with you and they wanted to work with you or reach out, how might they do that and what might they expect?
Great. Thanks. You can find me at my website, katekayaian.com. We'll put that in the show notes because it's impossible to spell. And my blog, come say hello and have a listen at Tales from the Lane podcast or the blog. And I have a little freebie if anybody's interested for these. If you're feeling stuck and you want to make some progress towards those goals that you're boldly crushing, I have 5 ways to boost motivation when you just don't wanna,
Ooh,
which
I
we'll
love
put
that.
that link in the show notes as well. But yeah, come and see me. I'm at Kate Kayaian on Instagram. That's the main social media I hang out on. But yeah, I'd love to meet all of you guys.
Great. Kate, thank you so much for being on the show. Again, I could talk to you all day about this.
Ditto. We got to
Yeah.
have more Chicago catch ups.
Yeah, for sure. All right, bold goal crushers, it's time to crush your goals and everything that gets in the way so you don't have to work double time. So let's get to it. Thank you for tuning in to the Bold Goal Crusher podcast, where we crush goals and everything that gets in the way. I always love to support my community. I look forward to seeing you crush your goals this year.